Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned story about vengeance? And in this case, it's vengeance against a god. Not the kind of god you might normally be thinking. It's gonna be a machine god today in Miru. Welcome back to the channel. I am Sacred, and this is the Sacred Art of Gaming, where we enjoy talking about tabletop gaming, and sometimes we like to review little guys like Miru. For my reviews, I like to talk about the physical book, I like to talk about the contents of the book, and I like to talk about how it applies to solo play. And for this game in particular, that should be very easy because this is a solo game, specifically a solo game. And this, I mean, as far as like book construction goes, it's more about the charm than I think the actual build of the book. So I mean, it is small, compact, easy to carry around, so that is a plus. But yeah, this thing will wear down for sure because this is like a zine format. Now, what is this game all about? Well, it's time to kill a god. I'm going to show you portions of this book, but I am not going to show you all of the book for two reasons. One, it's a pretty small book. I don't want to give you everything. If you want to buy it and you're interested, go buy it. Support the creator. The other reason is that I don't want to spoil some of the story bits for you because there's two things that can be spoiled here. There's the main story, is kind of the whole reason for playing. We don't want to spoil that, because the story is the story. That is the thing that is going to happen. And then there's a D6 table for each section that has stories within them. I don't want to spoil those either because there's not like hundreds of options. There's six. There's six in each area. All right, so let's jump into Miru. I feel this is the intro, so I don't feel like this is spoiling anything. Bad things happen to a family member kind of by accident through one of these like machines. You pretty much swear to destroy the machines, we'll say. Time to kill a god. What an evocative intro to the book. So I love the font, I love the layout, I love the style, all of this, it makes me want to play, and I love that. There are two things, honestly, between the book, like being really inviting and pulling me in, and then also the gameplay loop, and we'll talk about that. Lets you know what you need to play. So a couple D20s, some D6s, map. Okay, here's one of my old character sheets. I think I've got this is the folding one. I did kind of go through it twice, but we'll take a look at that. And kill the god is the win condition. And then it'll let you know death. There's a calendar here. So here is like the calendar. You'll see these highlighted days. That's where like specific story beats take place. And this is like a survival game. So you are very squishy in the beginning and you really need gear. You really need gear, and that is dependent on events, and that is dependent on finding villages. You also need training skills and talents. That also helps quite a bit. And then you also have to eat and sleep, and that's part of the gameplay loop. And although that might sound like a turnoff if you're not into that, it actually ended up being pretty cool. And this gameplay loop, the way it is shown for the steps and the turn, seems complicated, but once you play it, it actually isn't. So you move to a tile. We'll use this as an example. So as you can see, I had two playthroughs. I guess I was too lazy to print it out again, so I just moved to the other side. So let's say I'm here in the grassland that has a little village and I want to move here. So I move to a different tile. I roll a d6 to determine the terrain, which is here. So here's the terrain table. 1 is a small injury on page 11. 2 is forest, 3 is mountains, 4 is grasslands, 5 is desert, 6 is the swamp. And there's a sweet little player tip here. If you want to speed up dice rolling for the day, you can roll 4 d6 at once, then divide them like so. Terrain, clarity, and event. We'll take it piece by piece for now. We figure out the terrain. So let's say it is swamp. You can determine the weather, which makes things more difficult. That's optional. I don't recommend that to start because this game is not easy, but doable. So then roll 2d6 to determine the event. 2d6 leads me to believe there's more. I don't want to show this part, just in case. So when you roll the event, we'll say it is, I said swamp, which I think is 6, which is not ideal, but whatever. Show me swamp. All right, swamp. So you roll the 2d6, and then that lets you know a couple different things, whether maybe you're at like a dead end, for example. Maybe you can't move any further, so you kind of block that off. Maybe you find some ruins, which a lot of times is good, or you find like an encounter. Some other things that you could find in some of the nicer places is you just find nothing, which I don't know how I feel about that. You just pass in peace, which might actually feel good at the time, but it's just not interesting for the story, really. But a village, for example, a village is a positive. I would prefer like a negative or a positive over nothing. You get those things, and then depending on what you roll after that, because you then roll a d6 to clarify the event. So let's say you get one of those categories, let's say it's a ruin, then you roll a d6 on the ruin section, and then that'll break down what happens in that area. It'll give you like a little like choose your own adventure, like here are the things that are happening, and then this is what you're gonna deal with, or what you found, or what opens up for you, etc. And then you must survive the event, and then camp for the night and adjust stats accordingly. And then these two, it kind of breaks it down over here to let you know like under what circumstances you would need to do these. Find the icons event, find the encounter event you rolled. So this is really just, the encounter is really just a clarification if that is something that you rolled. So an encounter, you could have a fight, and the fights are rough. The fights are rough. Is there something that I can like, just enemies that I can show you? I want to show something because I like the art. I like the art on the enemies. We'll show one example. So here is like a map of the garden here, and then here's like an enemy, a buster. So something that's cool about these, you have your HP, the defense, and like what it takes to escape them whenever you're rolling, and then for the attack that it'll do against you. So it's kind of a flat roll depending on what they roll. So if they roll a 5 or 6, that's bad, they're gonna do a lot of damage. If they roll a 1 or 2, they're gonna do 2 damage. Now you have the context as to how combat is going to work to some degree. Money is also very important, especially if you get to a village. Now, combat is not here, but it does give you some like terrain, how to like set up or how to draw the terrain, or if you found a village, a quest, an enemy, or if it's impassable. And this is kind of like a choose your own adventure journaling game to some degree, but this is a journaling game with play, which is a lot of fun. Now, I do want to mention what the combat is like here. So combat and survival. It's going to be as simple as your attack minus defense equals damage. So with that creature, I think we saw its defense was a 3. For this guy, who, as you can see, your base attack is a 1. And this guy is pretty built out. He's pretty stout. As you can see, he's got an option of 5, which is probably like a standard. 7 is probably like a special, and then 10 is probably like with training skills or whatever. So why do things keep falling in my videos recently? Am I haunted? So let's say you do 5 damage. You don't roll, just 5 damage is what I do. I minus their defense, which is 3. I did 2 damage. Great. It's gonna be a long fight. So you have that, and then you do have stun is very powerful, and kind of saves your ass if we're being honest. It basically makes them skip their turn, but I feel like they almost always roll out of it for me. Now there's not a ton of difference really between, like, I know they break out melee and range here, but mechanically it didn't really matter that much, sadly. And then your tech skills, these are interesting. So they're skills that you learn along your journey. They let you attack the enemy with extra power and effects, and then how you use it. Roll a d6 for each tech skill you know, up to 3 dice. If one is equal to or less than the current level of that tech skill, you level up that skill and hit the enemy. Otherwise, you miss and your turn ends. So that is rough. So it's very likely, especially to start, that you miss quite a bit. So what that means here is a d6 for each tech skill that you know. So if you just know one, you're rolling a single d6. Odds are not in your favor, so there's a good chance that you miss, but you'll also never get better. So it's that can be rough. We did see escape earlier. We do want to touch on that. So if you want to attempt to run away from the fight, you have your energy and your health. You would minus 2 EP, roll a d6 and score higher than the enemy's escape. We saw that last one, I believe, was a 3, so you have to roll 4, 5, or 6. If you manage to escape, move to a different tile. The enemy stays in the tile without healing. This gives you some additional stuff here. And then we mentioned like camping, eating, and sleeping, and why that's important. Because if you go too many days without eating, you continue to lose HP until you die. And then also sleeping, similar deal. Sleep deprivation, you lose EP, which is used for like your abilities and stuff. And then over here, we have the rewards, which I think are actually really cool and really well done. There's some enemies that you can fight that you get some like thematic rewards from. And actually shows you an example here. So I guess I could have used this enemy card as an example. So it's got 14 HP, shows you the attack. My God, on a 1 to 2 it does 14. But if you kill, potentially, each enemy features a special reward. If you roll an 11 or 12 when searching for a reward, this will be an option for you to take. That's so cool. Reminds me of like video games where, you know, the rare drop that you get off of an enemy scratches a similar itch. So here's the reward pool here where you roll. So to claim a reward, roll 1d6 for every black skill level dot on the enemy that you defeated. This has 2, so we would roll 2d6. You may choose any combination of dice to determine your reward. Okay, if you earn a stash reward, select one item. Okay, so it's like there's a little bit of a flow chart for different stuff here. So we roll 2d6. Let's say we roll a 3 and a 4. That's a 7. So we would get 3 bitliths, which is the currency in the game. But if we rolled we actually couldn't roll a 15 or a 16. We could only roll a 12. So yeah, these general stash and limited stash, you'd only get those on enemies that have the 3 dots. But you could get some cool stuff like treasure maps, a hacked miner shield, some bows, arrows, hunting knives. But that special reward is an option on an 11 or 12 where you would get those spare parts. Now there are some cool like quests and maps and different adventures that you can go on that are in addition to the main story. But the shops are so important and the villages are so important. And that really kind of determines how good of a run you're going to have. Because as you find more villages, as you can see, Village 1 only has this TS1 dodge and strike that you can buy for 5 bitliths. Village 2, however, offers TS2 for 10 bitliths, and then there's also there's these additional things that is complicated, but there's treasure maps 1 through 6. I guess you need these maps that you can supply and then get a treasure map out of it. This one you can buy for 8 bitliths plus 2 spare parts, so there's a little bit of a trade going on. And then for the laser sword, you need a laser arm and a spare part and 10 bitliths, and you can get that. And then lastly, the third village that's shown here, you can get jump and attack for 15 bitliths. So yeah, really cool. There is the item catalog in the back that gives you an idea like what this stuff means. So those tech skills, for example, the dodge and strike gives you a +2 to your attack. For 2 EP, you can dart to the side and strike with any melee weapon. So your range weapons, some armor and stuff, your maps. And if you die, you can continue. You can keep playing just with 10 HP and 10 EP, and you lose money. So there's almost like a, I don't know if roguelike is the right word for that, but it's not just done if you die, especially with how deadly it is. You can keep going. We have our fun little glossary. And then we have the challenge mode with weather and terrain, etc. Rusty weapons, some ways that you can change up the game. So some things I really love about the game is that really tight gameplay loop and how fun it is. It kind of brings me back to things like the Civilization computer game where you're up all night and you're just saying one more turn, one more turn. And I found myself doing that a lot with Miru. Just find out what one more terrain block is. Find out what is in there. Can I get some better gear? Can I upgrade it? Can I do something with this laser arm or whatever? It kind of became like a fun, analog, addictive gameplay loop, which was really cool. The calendar running with the story beats, also a really cool mechanic. You know that, okay, here comes day 3, something big is going to happen. I don't know what it is yet, but there's something. I know something is going to happen, so maybe make sure I am well rested, well fed, and well equipped as much as possible. The combat is very deadly, but regardless of that, I actually feel like this is a really good starting point for solo players because there's not too much that you really have to deal with. It's very self-contained, everything is right here, and if you're not into journaling, like you don't really have to journal. You could easily play without journaling, but I mean, it's really just saying like, yeah, day 5. This is what I did. This is what I found. Next. But your character sheet kind of does that too. And it does really scratch that like hex crawl, adventuring, what's on the next tile, what's in here, itch. That's just so fun. If I were to change something though, I do wish there were more like random encounters and stuff, because I did, by like day 40, I did find myself getting, even before that, like well before that, rolling the same things, or maybe I've rolled everything on that terrain type. And there are some options for other stuff that you can look at, but even that you can exhaust that somewhat easily. I just wish that there was a way to either just straight up expand upon that, whether it's 2d6 or 3d6 or d20 or something, just so there's more stuff, or if there's just like a very creative way to basically combine this thing with maybe this thing, and maybe it means something else. Thoughts that I had when I was playing it, where I just kind of I wanted more, which honestly is kind of a good thing too, to say that I wanted more. But yeah, I do enjoy it. I did enjoy it, and I do recommend it for solo play, especially for beginners. It is a solo play game and also very reasonably priced. I think this is showing $17, and I think this was at a local game store. I could be wrong. I think there was a markup on that. I don't know if that was what actually was paid or what. But yeah, it's definitely under $20, and I think the PDF is I'll probably link. I'll link it. I'll do the thing where I link it down below. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Have you played any games like this, or are you looking forward to games like this? This kind of gives that vibe of this is a game about like machines that are kind of taking over, and people are just there existing. And there's definitely a Freely game that it kind of reminds me of. Was it the something state? I don't know. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one as we continue to explore the sacred art of gaming together.